Ukrainian regions including Zaporizhia, Kharkiv, Kherson and Mykolaiv have reported injuries from Russian attacks. Ukraine and Russia are exchanging fire on multiple fronts. Bridges are being destroyed, cities are burning and oil depots are under attack. At least 7 people were injured in a missile strike, while 2 others were hospitalized, and 23 private homes, 12 apartment buildings and a post office suffered damage.
At 4:44 a.m., Russian air defenses believed they'd just saved a $1.2 billion refinery. In reality, they had shot down ghosts. 12 decoy drones mimicking cruise missiles pulled 2 Panzer batteries into unleashing missile volleys worth millions, all while the real attack slipped below the radar horizon. Within minutes, 50 drones struck from the shadows, igniting the refinery that supplied nearly a fifth of Russia's jet fuel. How did a $13 million deception rewrite every rule of air defense? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Before the first explosion, Russia's radar screens lit up with what looked like a cruise missile wave, 12 tiny transmitters posing as something far more lethal. To Ukraine's planners, the refinery at Salavat wasn't just a fuel plant. It was the nerve node of a supply chain that kept Russia's Southern Air Command in motion. Take it offline, and entire flight wings would feel the squeeze within days. The attack wasn't about geography, it was about pressure, precision, and timing.
All right, in other news, Russia has conducted fresh strikes on Ukraine's Zaporizhia region. Ukraine says Russian forces carried out 567 attacks over the last 24 hours.
On the diplomatic front, US President Donald Trump has issued a 10-day ultimatum to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Ukraine and Russia are exchanging fire on multiple fronts. Bridges are being destroyed, cities are burning and oil depots are under attack.
Been to northeastern Ukraine, near Sumy and the Russian border, and seen Ukrainian troops in action against drone attacks.
Group Alpha carried that burden. 12 UJ-22 Beavers were modified to become signal amplifiers rather than bomb carriers. Each drone pulsed a boosted X-band echo, tricking sensors into classifying them as fast, incoming missiles. On screen, they looked like doom, large signatures closing fast, too organized to ignore. Operators at the site's perimeter stations watched the contacts multiply, then converge. At 4:38 a.m., 2 Panzer S-1 batteries came alive. Launchers locked. Tracking radars painted the sky with search beams, and in less than 6 minutes, 75 interceptors tore upward. The airspace turned into a lattice of contrails, yet nothing solid occupied it. Every missile cost more than the decoy it targeted, a calculus Ukraine's designers built into the plan. The defenders were bleeding resources minute by minute.
Biggest Russian drone and missile attack of the war. Ukraine says Moscow fired 550 drones and 11 missiles overnight. Rescue workers say 1 person died and 26 were injured.
Ukrainian regions including Zaporizhia, Kharkiv, Kherson and Mykolaiv have reported injuries from Russian attacks. Trump added that new sanctions could be imposed on Russia if the war continues.
Meanwhile, the Nebo-M radar at Ufa caught the same formation. 12 returns, spaced like a strike package. The command network authorized full engagement, believing this to be a deep penetration raid. But each false echo fed more noise into the defensive grid, overflowing algorithms and blinding the filters meant to separate threat from clutter. For a few heartbeats, confusion ruled. When the radar traces winked out, crews cheered. The threat seemed gone. But that disappearance was the trigger code. Group Alpha's mission had ended exactly as intended. The radar sectors were cleared, interceptors spent, and sensors off balance. Through that silence, Group Omega advanced, low, unseen, and minutes from target. While radars reset and operators reloaded, 48 attack drones hugged forest ridges below radar view, flying blind to Russia's sensors. These were the Lyot drones of Group Omega, each programmed for terrain masking. Their onboard maps and radar altimeters worked together like silent co-pilots, tracking valleys and rivers through thousands of micro-adjustments every minute. Flying at roughly 300 feet, they followed the ground contours so tightly that to any radar pulse, they simply blended with the landscape. Ukrainian engineers had designed their route months earlier using satellite data and topographical scans. Every curve, every rise in elevation, was accounted for. The drones crept across more than 1,000 kilometers, invisible to early warning nets that watched only the upper air corridors. The defenders scanned for big signatures, cruise missiles or jets, never expecting a low, slow procession weaving through the terrain like a moving shadow line.
To Russia launching a massive aerial assault against Ukraine, the biggest since the invasion more than 3 years ago.
Vying to step up attacks in response to increasing Russian offensives. Over the past 24 hours,
a night of terror in a capital under attack. The drones kept coming in the darkest hours.
Trump added that new sanctions could be imposed on Russia if the war continues.
Each passing minute pressed against a narrow clock. Their window existed only while the decoys occupied enemy radars. Once defenses recalibrated, heat trackers and acoustic sensors would start sweeping low again. But before that could happen, Omega's formation reached the final valley, where the refinery's own industrial glow was bright enough to hide their infrared trails. They cut power, drifted in silence, and prepared to strike. At 4:48 a.m., Omega 1 hit catalytic cracking unit 4. Its shaped charge slammed through quarter-inch steel, and the impact triggered a chain of fires that raced through the western complex. Distillation towers folded in on themselves. Fire climbed the spires. Defensive radars flickered and went dark under streams of interference from the burning metal around them. The cost of the operation, about $13 million, leveled assets valued near $1.2 billion. That 90-to-1 ratio became the benchmark for modern efficiency, small autonomous swarms turning strategic depth into vulnerability.
At least 7 people were injured in a missile strike, while 2 others were hospitalized, and 23 private homes, 12 apartment buildings, and a post office suffered damage.
Her report begins with last night's bombardment of Kyiv, where almost every district of the city was affected.
From one refinery onward, warfare began favoring deception over distance, cost over size, intellect over armor. Salavat proved that precision and deception are the new artillery. A single swarm, deployed with calculated timing, erased the concept of a strategic safe zone. The refinery strike exposed a modern truth: depth no longer equals safety, and distance no longer guarantees survival. The cost ratio alone, $13 million spent for more than $1 billion destroyed, shows how asymmetry rewires power. Every radar echo may now be a ghost. Every silence, a possible threat. This is the new psychology of air defense, where perception is the first casualty and certainty the last. Subscribe and join a community analyzing this evolving geometry of conflict.